I've done it. Okay. So the discussion tonight is partly on the mayoral elections and then mostly on devolution. I'm just going to do a little bit on the mayoral election. I'm not going to pretend I know a lot. And I confess that I was starting off by feeling the need to persuade people how important it is. I think looking at you, probably you don't need much persuasion, but I will zip through the little PowerPoint I've made, assuming I can do it, because my share button has disappeared. I wonder if it's under more. Yes, okay. All right, can you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Right. Can you now? I hope.
Yay.
Yeah, okay. Which is the last page, I think? No. Okay. So very quickly, as far as I can see, I mean, the mayor is going to have a lot of power, possibly more than an MP. So it really is a big deal. And I think there are a lot of people who still think it's, you know, a sort of nice old councillor who's been there for years, who now wears a chain for a year. And of course, it's going to be very different. So there's a list here of what I imagine it's an accurate list of the kind of things that the mayor will be responsible for. And then what I did was I just did a quick Google search of some of the things that have been said about mayors and what they're doing. And that gives a flavour of what a difference a mayor can make. They're going to have a budget and they're going to be able to use that budget more flexibly. At the moment, when the government gives money, it usually has a lot of strings attached and is to a particular area, whereas the mayor can actually use that budget much more flexibly. And depending on their political alignment, that is probably how they will use it. Some of them obviously are great. You know, you look at it and you think, oh yeah, that's good. But there is also this possibility. I mean, I think there are 2 reform mayors now. And very quickly, Angela Jenkins came out with her statement about putting asylum seekers in tents. And for me, as an anti-oil campaigner, this one is particularly worrying because we thought we'd won that battle. And there's a chance that we're going to have to start that battle all over again. So there is a group that has met to look at the mayoral campaign. One of the first things we were told was that the Central Party won't be putting any money towards it. So locally, we would have to raise the money ourselves. We haven't got any details of how the South East Green people are going to organise the campaign, except for this, that there are 5 tiers, and I'm not sure what the Sussex tier is going to be. But you can see there's a core one, which is a minimum, and even that would cost between £5,000 and £10,000 that we would have to raise. And then as you go through these, each one is a more intensive campaign and gets more and more expensive, as you can see. And then finally, there's the target to win, and we'll be talking about £250,000 plus, which is really quite scary. As I say, I have tried to find out which of those tiers they're aiming for us in Sussex. We have been told that that Sussex actually does have a chance of winning, but I assume it would only have a chance of winning if they went through to the full target campaign. And that really is as much as I can say. I was hoping other people would be able to come up with some comments. Now let's see if I can get myself out of here. Stop share. Okay. Have other people had thoughts on the mayoral campaign?
Anne, could I ask, are the meetings ongoing, and is anybody leading them for Sussex?
There was one initial meeting where we all met in Brighton, and from that we ended up with several working parties. One of the working parties was on candidate selection, another was on raising the funds, one was on policy matters, and one was on comms. I've been vaguely involved with both the fundraising one and the candidate selection, but very quickly, I mean, originally we were told to start looking for candidates and to consider asking people, but we've since been told that the South East Greens want to actually open it up to the whole of our members, which is fair enough. But when they're going to do it, I don't know. It therefore is going to involve quite a big selection process. And my concern is that will take time. And if we're serious about it, we need to have a candidate very quickly, because we're going to have to promote them and make them known and make them look credible. And you can't just do that in 2 months just before an election. I had already put forward Tony Whitbread, who was head of Sussex Wildlife Fund in his time, who's very good at speaking and has a sort of quite range of dealing with policy and institutions. Unfortunately, he said he doesn't want to, because I thought he would have been a very good candidate. I mean, a lot of people have suggested Caroline Lucas, but she's been very firm and said no, she is not interested. So one of the appeals is, you know, if you can think of some really, really good candidates, please let us know. If they're not party members, one of the things is they should have been a party member for a year. If they're not, it means that we have to find 20 people to back them, which in somebody like Tony Whitbread wouldn't be difficult to do at all. And then the other big appeal is, if you know anybody rich that we can apply to for a generous donation, we are going to really need that. You know, we really need a considerable fundraising team.
I thought that it was £10,000 as a deposit.
I think it's 5,000 a deposit, but there's also a booklet that you have to buy a page of, which is very important, and that's another 5,000, they reckon.
So that, I mean, that is such a huge amount of money, and I know, you know, we have a lot of problem with fundraising, but I agree with you absolutely. We need, despite the fact it's important to have a clear and transparent way of choosing this person, we need this person to be chosen fairly quickly. If you're saying, and we're hearing on the grapevine that other parties have already, people are putting their hats in the ring, you know, they're declaring they want to stand from the Conservatives. You know, we need to get moving on this if we've got any chance at all. And also, I know that you've said in the past, this is the big worry about reform. It's first past the post, you know, sort of almost, I'm not going to say almost anything could happen, because somebody will have sat down and analysed how all the votes play out, or have traditionally in the past. But I think you know, reform is there. It could be a good thing because it could take Conservative votes away, but guessing that over such a large area is quite worrying, isn't it? But I think on the whole, there definitely will be an election. It's no good worrying about it. The whole local government reorganisation and devolution, we might agonise over it, and I've attended lots of meetings, no doubt there will be many more, but at the end of the day, this is happening. This will be decided in the end, they tell me, by the Treasury, because it will be made, the decision will be made on financial reasons. What is the most effective way of running your unitary council? Yesterday I was actually at the City Council full council meeting, and the clerk there has done an amazing piece of work to work out. So in Chichester, the city is like the parish council, but it wants to take on all the parks, it wants to take on the toilets in case they get closed, and it wants to take on events and markets and things like that, but it also wants a car park to pay for these things. So the clerk of the City Council has done all the analysis, how much it's going to cost, She's liaised with loads of others, smallish, let's say smallish towns, cities that have done this. What happens is, or what has happened elsewhere, sometimes the Unitary wants to keep hold of these assets, and then suddenly 6 months down the line, as it was an amazing story, and I can't remember which council it was now, 6 months down the line, they're almost bankrupt, and they want to quickly give away all these assets so they don't have to maintain them. And it meant that this little parish council, you know, however it, you know, it was fairly big, but was taking on these assets, and they were working up till midnight trying to get all the paperwork done and all the legal agreements. The big winners in this are the lawyers, the consultants. You know, how we're going to manage this big transfer of assets. And basically, you can either go and ask for them now. CD, just a little parochial thing here, CDC doesn't want to give them away, and it's a bit tricky. So the City Council last night was sort of saying, oh well, we'll wait until we're offered them, but they want to do all the preparation in advance. So there's all these sorts of conversations happening in the background, but the core issue is that actually a lot of this is going to be decided, as I said, by the Treasury. There are a lot of open questions. If all this handing down of the parks and things happens, you'll find your parish precepts will go up. The amount, she'd already calculated, the clerk of the City Council, how much the precept would go up. And the problem is, just a district council being fairly wealthy with reserves, we pay lots of people's council tax. If they're vulnerable and can't pay it, we have the discretionary ability to pay people's council tax. That might well fall away. I haven't done an analysis of what all the other districts and boroughs do in the whole county area. We've got some representatives here, so we might learn a bit. But there's no guarantee that Chichester will still have that for its residents. So we're way increasing this precept, and we're possibly pulling the rug underneath from the feet of our poorer residents. We don't know. What we do know is that Chichester district that has these assets or reserves has got to put them in the general pot, and any council, naming no names because I do not analyse everybody's finances, but any council in our area that has any debts or any liabilities, they'll go in the general pot too, to be shared around. And our main issue is we are, at a cost of about £30 million, I was told the other day, reorganising the deck chairs on the Titanic, when actually what we're not doing is sorting out adult social care and children's special needs. You know, all the money for education. And that is the risk, that we are making these big, we don't know if there's going to be 1 or 2 unitaries. We don't know yet. My sort of, sometimes I edge towards, well, if you're going to have to split adult social care and children's, you might as well keep 1 unitary, because the cost of doing that and the transition shocks. West Sussex have 2 of these big services to deliver and want to make it as unturbulent as possible, or reduce any turbulence. They want to make it as easy as possible. So when I go to briefings by West Sussex, it is a little bit about, we know how to run this big authority, so it's in safe hands under us. That was our first main briefing. But the way it was put across was sort of like, well, we're just going to take it over. And I reacted and said, oh, that's not a very good thing, is it? We don't want your West Sussex culture. Oh, I should be careful what I'm saying. This is being recorded.
Yes.
But our second briefing, obviously they'd got the message. The second briefing was very different. And I was going to take us through that. I realised I've just started waffling. And maybe for some of the people on this call who aren't as into this as me, maybe as Ian and Mike, maybe I should go back at the beginning. We started on a conversation. Maybe I should just go back a few steps and do a little bit of a summary for those people that aren't up with this. Obviously, Anne, you're involved in the mayoral stuff, it just seems sensible to do that. So very quickly then, this all started back in December. The government issued a white paper, and there we were a few days before Christmas. Oh, this was our Christmas present, was it? I don't know. We had, I think, until the 11th of January to work out, basically to accept. I suppose we could have refused, but this is going to happen anyway. So we had until 11th of January. Some councils were very organised, like East Sussex. They actually had a full county council debate. We weren't that organised at West Sussex. And basically, the Conservatives were very keen to sign up to this because they thought, A, it will bring more money, and B, their main reason for doing it, because I was in the meetings, was that they thought this would sort out the A27. Alarm bells ringing for anyone whose division or ward covers is anywhere near the Arundel bypass, the Worthing bypass, the possible Chichester bypass. So, of course, and the mayor, of course, looks after transport. So they were super, super pleased. So they put this in, and they were then given, I think, a date in the spring. They had to put together their ideas. Actually, what our councils put forward was rather vague. They didn't commit to anything, and quite right too. They haven't done the research. This has been rushed through massively quickly by the government. So we're now in a sort of holding position that everybody is busy trying to research and find out what would be the best way to organise ourselves. So we know we're going to have a mayor. Anne's already told us about a mayor at the top. He's going to have a little committee underneath him.
Or her.
Or her. It will probably be a man, though. This is the problem with mayoral things. It makes it much more likely to be a man. So it's not so good for equality, in my view, although there are some female mayors, clearly. So that person at the top will have, in theory, 2 representatives from Brighton and Hove, 2 representatives from East Sussex, and 2 from West Sussex to sit underneath them, and they'll be the voting members. And the main outcry, there was suddenly an outcry even from the Conservatives. Oh, how inequitable is that? That's not very fair, because West Sussex has got roughly 900,000 people, East Sussex far fewer, and then little old Brighton and Hove, they've only got 280,000 apparently, and that's not equitable. So we put that in our submission. It should be more fair. Then there'd also be non-voting members. They might invite someone from the NHS, someone from further education, somebody from the South Downs National Park. They'll all be carried along there, but they've got no voting rights. And my key concern is, unlike London, where you have the mayor and the London Assembly, which is elected, and they hold the mayor to account, we've got possibly a few chosen, the top 2 councillors from our unitaries, and they are probably not going to be effective opposition, because they're, most of them, we don't know who they'll be, obviously, because not been voted in, but there won't be anyone from the smaller parties. There won't be any independents. It will be a very small group of people. They can't really hold this mayor to account. That's one of my big bugbears. And then when I mention that, the Conservatives say, oh, rubbish, Sarah. Well, oh, that's not true, Councillor Sharp, because we, the electorate, everyone can hold the mayor to account, because we can unelect them every 4 years. Now, that's not the holding to account I'm looking for. I'm looking for a nitty-gritty, looking at ideas, and also having, criticising things as they're put in and adding new ideas, a new perspective. We won't have very much of that. Anyway, be that as it may, we can't alter that. So the next couple of months, we've got a lot of councillors, sorry, we've got a lot of officers doing research, mainly, I think, into money. So how much has each council got? They're looking at deprivation levels. They're looking at, there's quite a lot of people down here on the coast. Some of them aren't so rich. And then, up there, that's the, the powerhouse, I suppose, the economic powerhouse, Gatwick, Crawley, they decided they wanted to go it alone, or not go it alone. They wanted to join Reigate and Banstead and cut themselves off from West Sussex. I believe that's all finished. They can't do that anymore. I think there was a lot of angst down here in Chichester. They were really worried about losing this big money place, which would then sort of subsidise us poorer folk on the coast, for example. So there's a lot of research about money. There might be some research about governance. How are we going to set this up? How are we going to set this up? So how many councillors are going to have? What sort of system we're going to have? We found out this week that the government has said it can't be committee system. Committee system is banned. You could only have a leader and a cabinet system. So there won't be much discussion on that. There might be a little bit discussion on how many councillors we have. And there might be a little bit of work being done on identity, belonging, you know, community. How are we going to do this over such a large area? So some councillors have come up with a north-south split, which would split, let me get this right. I hope I get this right. I think that was split to district in half. But the government has said, that's not a good idea. Please don't split any of your districts. And the other one is east-west split, which annoys splitting, if I'm right. What does it split off? Does it split off Worthing? Maybe Ian can help me here if I'm getting a bit hazy.
Yeah, yes. So it splits Adrian and Worthing.
Adrian and Worthing.
So Adrian and Worthing are actually two separate councils would have had shared services for about a decade or so.
So maybe that's a bit tricky. And some people say Brighton and Hove at 280 is too small. The figure given by the government was 500,000, but they've become a bit more flexible on that. And I don't think many people like the idea of Brighton and Hove doing a bit of a power grab, or not power grab, land grab, we should maybe call it. So I'm not sure if that's progressing. And of course, I don't go to all the meetings. We do have a working group, but unfortunately, I'm too lowly a councillor. I didn't get to go on that. So, and what am I looking at? I'm just flicking through these slides that I got from West Sussex to see if I've missed anything out. So we know that West Sussex is the it's not very interesting, but it's the accountable body to look after the £1 million that we've got to spend to sort out all these problems. That sounds quite a lot, but it's not really, is it? That has to pay, I believe, for the salary of the CEO. So once you get your mayor, I think you're going to have a chief officer or someone. So that person, he or she, is going to be paid. So that's £1 million funding to deliver the mayoral county combined authority. So we have to do this. We have to become a unitary. We don't know the area. Once these officers have done all their research, they've been very busy, they are going to consult and engage with us. Amazing. When we're all on holiday in July and August. Oh, not so good. But it's not, to be fair, it's not their timetable. They didn't set this timetable. Any of the councils, I think, would have done it in a more sort of slower, logical manner. This has been incredibly rushed. They have to engage. I did see something the other day to say, hopefully we'll all engage with the same, singing from the same hymn sheet. Now that's really interesting because they are collaborating. I sense from a last recent meeting, there was a bigger sense of collaboration and we have to be in this together. It's no good us all working on the same thing. But there was this acceptance. And I thought this was quite good, actually. We might not all come to the same conclusion. It might be that Brighton and Hove decides something and West Sussex clearly might just go for the unitary, one unitary. Just a district council maybe will go for something else. We don't know. We'll all put in our submissions and our letters or whatever, and we might even get discussion about this at West Sussex. Now that would be incredible, wouldn't it? Because they've actually booked in a full council meeting very close to a cabinet meeting, which they didn't do in January. So they are getting better. But actually, to be honest, we might agonize over this, wonder about it, think about it. It's a sort of crisis of identity. Do you feel more that you belong to West Sussex or just a district? At the end of the day, we will have one or possibly two unitaries. The main aim is that it's set up to be sustainable. That's the main concern of our officers in Chester districts. That's why they won't give a car park. They're not giving away their car parks. There's no good asking. They're so worried about the sustainability of the unitary, they don't seem to care about the sustainability of their parishes. But anyway, and there was going to be a white paper about parishes, but that's been thrown in the bin, or there's not enough time. I don't know. So there's not going to happen that. So if we, as Chichester district or anybody else says, this is huge, I don't want to be in a huge unitary, if any of us say we want an area board or a neighbourhood committee or whatever you happen to call it, that's all well and good. We could even get that included in our suggested governance. But remember, once that new unitary or unitaries is set up, they can do whatever they like. We can suggest, we could say it's a really good idea if members of the public can ask questions in public. But what will happen if these area committees, because you can't at West Sussex, by the way, you can't ask a question in public, you can only ask at our districts, I think, are more open and more friendly and Sorry, so I'm a bit biased against West Sussex. They're getting better, but they're not as good. So what will happen is once the unitary is set up, if we've said prior to this, oh, we'd love to have an area neighbourhood committee so we can come together in a smaller area and let's give it some funding. Let's give it some powers over some local things. Let's say some of it's traffic stuff. Maybe we don't want that discussed in Burgess Hill. So nothing against Burgess Hill, you know, don't get me wrong, but we don't want to have to traipse off for a planning committee all the way up to Crawley when we're discussing a building or a farm or something down in Selsey. We don't want that. We want to have a little bit of local. That's also another really big thing. What's going to happen to the local plans? We believe we will get ours through at Chester district, fingers crossed, everything crossed this summer. And then this is going to be a few months of relief, because then after about at least a year, we're not going to have enough houses. But anyway, our 5-year housing land supply, it's not going to be enough because we're going to need a buffer. But anyway, we hope to get a local plan, but we don't actually know what is going to happen. I don't even think the officers know. Correct me if I'm wrong, other councillors. They seem a bit vague. They seem to say, oh, we've got to start working on our new local plan straight away. Oh, yes, but hold on. The mayor's taking over strategic planning. And that's the whole reason behind this. Let's not forget. Why are we doing this in the first place? So that Labour can get their top down. They can speak to their one man or woman, one person in Sussex. It's going to be so much easier. I don't want to speak to all those districts and boroughs in East Sussex and West Sussex and Brighton and Hove. That's far too many people. It takes up too much time. I'm going to speak to one person and make sure I get my housing in. And remember, at the time when this was launched, the main reason for it was economic growth. They need and want and desire, the Labour Party have put economic growth as their number 1 priority. And what we're concerned, of course, is with sustainability and nature and what's going to happen to all that, what's going to happen to that. I'm actually not sure. People have asked, like SECO, the South East Climate Alliance, have asked a government, I suppose, eventually, to make sure that the new mayor come unitaries have sustainability at their heart and nature at their heart. But these are two conflicting things. Anne wants to say something.
Can I interrupt just a second, Sarah? Because that's a hell of a lot of stuff that you've covered already. You really have covered a lot. I just wondered how the councillors from the other districts, how much of that is familiar to them, or if they've got another side to it.
Oh yeah, they might have been told a different story.
So Mel or Mike or Ian,
Well,
how does this ring to you?
I'm happy to chip in. Yeah, so we had a briefing the other day, and it was made. So what we were told was, yeah, we know that West Sussex want a unitary, and they want to remain as West Sussex. They want to keep the power all with themselves. What we were told was the districts and boroughs all agree that there should be 2 unitaries, so they don't agree with a single unitary. So that I understand there was a meeting of the districts and boroughs. Was it yesterday? I think, and. So what it seems, so yeah, there was basically the choices between this north-south split. So I do have a map I can share, but basically, it's the coast versus north of Chichester. So the coast would own the A27. So yeah, there could be a coastal unitary, or there could be and then there could be a north unitary, but that would involve splitting Chichester, which I think the only people that want that to happen are Worthing, as far as I can see. Maybe I'll be interested to hear what Mike's got to say, but I don't think any other districts and boroughs agree with that. So the most likely seems to be the east-west split. So the east-west split would be Worthing, Arran, and Chichester in the west, Ada, Horsham, Mid Sussex, and Crawley in the east. So we were given the impression that that was the most likely geographical makeup that the districts and boroughs were going to agree on. We'll see. And there will be a consultation in mid-July, i.e. about 3 weeks' time. So they've got to get moving. Yeah, and it's all, and the key things seem to be about money. It was about, she spoke about demand versus income imbalance. So they said the east-west split was the only one that had a balance, or could have had a route to achieving a balance between demand and income, whatever that means. With regard to the West Sussex thing about social care, so West Sussex are using social care as a reason why we have to have a unitary authority, because you can't disaggregate social care because it'll be a mess. So what we were told was a solution to that is having a social care partnership. So that in a way would be a shared service between the unitary authorities in West Sussex, and that could either be a temporary, or it could potentially be a longer term solution, which would mean that we wouldn't be breaking adult social care down into the unitaries, and it could actually go towards being a social care partnership for Sussex.
Oh,
Which would make a lot of sense, because then it starts to be on the same geographical footprint as health.
Oh, what about children's then? So if they've decided that for social care, are they going to make children's a partnership across the unitaries?
Well, that would make sense as well, wouldn't it? We'll see.
Yeah, I think demand versus income is just, it's deprivation, isn't it? They don't want to say the word, but actually it's like how it's the need in an area versus how many people are actually contributing to council tax and can look after themselves, versus how many people are living on the edge and need support, whether that's homelessness or whatever it is. That's how I interpret it.
Yes, yeah, you're probably right. That would make sense. And so the idea of the Brighton Hove thing, which is personally is what I'd be in favour of, is Ada and Worthing joining with Brighton and Hove. I can understand why I would be in favour of
Oh,
that.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you know Brighton and Hove, don't you?
and it's just down the road, basically. Whereas North Chichester is a very long way away,
Oh,
and I've got
gosh.
absolutely no way of getting there. So yeah, I personally feel that transport links within the unitaries should be a key factor, and we're doing our own survey through our newsletter. Okay, we've only got like 50 responses at the moment, but the least popular option is the West Sussex Unitary.
Oh,
The
yeah.
the next least popular is the East-West split, because I think because people see it doesn't make sense to people. It's not a thing people can relate to. That the most popular is Adrian Worthing joining Brighton Hove, but that ain't going to happen, I don't think.
It's because it's your colleague, your other colleagues. You said earlier, you said Worthing itself doesn't want that, didn't you?
Worthing Council don't. Worthing Council say they don't, but Brighton Hove don't want it.
Oh, Brighton and Hove don't want it.
No, Brighton Hove want to stay as they are. The little Brighton Hovians want to stay as they are. They don't want to be tainted by Fishersgate and New Haven or wherever else they're adjacent to. They want to stay on their own. I feel somebody needs to tell them otherwise, but that ain't. I don't think that's going to happen. I think I'll finish off here, but I think the problem with this is one of the problems with this is it's all being done in silos. So East Sussex are not talking to West Sussex. Brighton Hove aren't talking to anybody.
I've heard that.
And what should be happening here, if it's going to happen, it should be done Sussex wide. So I feel the politics needs to be taken out of it, and there needs to be a Sussex-wide analysis of what is the best solution for Sussex. Now that ain't going to happen.
I have a bit more confidence in my officers. I know most of them that are doing the work, and I hope, obviously I've not seen the results, and I think you point out the pertinent fact here for us councillors. There are briefings, not every week, but possibly in all the councils every week. So if we really work together as Greens, we could be really up on what was going on, but you do need to have a life. So I've got 2 councils to go to, and I go from briefing to briefing, and it's like, oh yeah, something's changed. I'm not really influencing it, but a lot of the officers working on it, I know, and I suppose I've got a bit of trust. Diane Shepherd's leading it from us, and I think Diane Shepherd, will try and do a genuine good job for her community that she's served for a very long time. So I'm sort of like, yeah, hopefully when we see what the recommendations are, that will be brilliant. That will be nice. And the description that you gave of East West, did you? I don't think I've been given the same maps, but I'd have to see them. It's just what you said. If you could share your maps, I don't know if I could be so clever as to share mine. No, I'm not, because I'm on my private email. I'm on my private laptop, so I can't share anything, I'm afraid.
Mel, I think you're on mute, Mel.
Sorry, yes, so I am. I could say I could share them quickly, but yeah, equally happy not to.
Mel, did you want to say something? I think Mel's trying to share. Sorry, Mel, it's not coming up, you're sharing. Ah.
Lynn's got her hand up.
I froze. I was trying to share, but now I can't do anything. I can't do anything. So I'll wait again if I can.
Yeah, at the moment you are sharing, but you're sharing
I'm
your
not
Zoom.
sharing anything. No. Whereas I have it here, but nothing's working.
Will you have a look at
Your
the bottom
screen
of that
sounds
page,
forward.
see if
Right.
you've got a little message saying
It's
to
there.
unshare.
It's there. Can you see that it's there? No?
You're not sharing the page you think you're sharing. That's what I'm saying.
No, I know I'm not, but when I click on it, nothing happens. So if you carry on without me, the only thing I've got.
Can you unshare that page?
I've gone into the corner here in a funny way that I never meant to.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, please, Lynn, go ahead.
Yes, Lynn.
And forgive my ignorance, but can somebody actually define for me what is and what is the function of a unitary?
Oh yes, yeah. So at the moment, sorry to have jumped in without properly explaining that, my apologies. At the moment, in our area, for example, in our area, we have 3 layers of government, local government at the moment, because you live in Chichester District, I believe, don't you, Lynn?
Yeah.
So we have parish councils, which are lowest level, and they deal with things like allotments, they might do bus stops. You know, they are the very lowest level of council. They will also comment on planning applications. Above them, we have just a district council, which deals with things like planning. So if you wanted to change your house, you'd have to write in and send in your plans, such as a district council, and all planning matters for housing and things like that are dealt with by the district. The district does a lot of other things too. For example, just a district council picks up your rubbish, but it gives it to West Sussex being the top layer, that's our county council, and the county council disposes of our rubbish. The county council has these huge responsibilities, which we were mentioning earlier, adult social care, which is a big commitment, and children's services. So that is our normal schools. I know we've got a lot of academies, but they still look after schools, and they also look after children's social care. And if anyone needs to be adopted, that's a huge budget that they need to look after. They do public health, for example, and then they'll have a contract agreement, and actually Chichester District Council will be doing the work for public health, and if you wanted to go on a walk or do something to improve your health, it might be a district council officer who does it, but it's given the work given from the county. So that behind the scenes are a huge number of intricate service agreements already. Oh, the other main thing which the county does, of course, is roads and transport and buses. So I had an hour-long chat today with somebody at the county about our buses in Chichester. So that's basically it. And the government thinks that's too much, that's messy, and we're going to save money by, this is the funny thing, we're going to save money, we're going to still have 3 layers of councils, but most of the work that Chichester District or all the districts do will be put together with all of the work really that the county does, and be delivered by one unitary. Hopefully that's clear. Is that?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Okay, very quickly, Mel's managed to get the different maps up, but also Ian and then Mike would like to raise an issue. So can we start with Ian?
Just to add briefly, so that to Brighton, one of the key things is Brighton Hove is already a unitary. So Brighton Hove went through this 25 years ago. So it was carved out of East Sussex. So we already have one unitary in Sussex. And then we've got East Sussex with lots of districts and West Sussex with lots of districts.
Thanks. I didn't know that. Mike.
Right, thanks. Yeah, I was going to pick up on a few points that Sarah raised, if I may. I think one thing we overlooked a bit was originally one of the things the government said with its white paper is it wanted fewer politicians. And that I think is core to some of this. Just going back up the list I wrote down, our CEO reckons council tax likely to rise to the highest of the districts.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
something to look forward to. Yeah, the districts, boroughs and county are meeting every 2 weeks, and you're quite right, Sarah, that does seem to be staying amicable. That's the message I'm getting from the briefings we've had. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is this national committee of the nations and regions, which is where the mayors all get together. And that's another sort of key to what's going on here. In terms of Horsham itself, we've just issued an asset list to all the parishes, so they know what might be available to them. I think we're still working on a protocol for how they actually apply and what the sort of methods around that.
We've got that. We've got a protocol, or we've got a, they've sort of sorted it out, but they seem to have fallen out. The district and the city are both run by Lib Dems, but they don't. It's the officers at district do not want to give away their assets. And you are absolutely right with both things that you said there. The main aim is to reduce the number of councillors. And what I heard the latest was, but again, you might know better than me, they can't redo the boundaries because that needs to go to another whole, and that itself will take a very long time to review the boundaries. So I think we are stuck with our county boundaries, but there'll be 2 councillors. This is what I've heard, 2 councillors per county division, which would make 140 if we had a whole unitary. But I like your maps. I'm not sure if I've actually seen exactly the same. It's a few weeks since I've looked at them, but thank you very much, Mel, for sharing. They really bring it clear.
It's a struggle
To us.
It was a struggle. The thing that really is odd for me is the loss of the district councils. So that's
efficiencies.
Yeah, too many councillors.
It's very difficult being in a district council, thinking what is worth doing now. And as you say, the assets, we've had an asset review working party looking at how we could suddenly make money out of all of these things, including some of the green space, which I completely fight against. But when we have the power not to take the green spaces away, I would have thought that was, with the developers, you can't help it. But with the district council, you could help it. But anyway, it's just very strange making decisions on the basis that we've only got a few years left.
Well, our Lib Dems are quite gung-ho. They want to get on with their regeneration plans for the city
as hard as they can and as fast as they can.
Yes, but there will come a time when they aren't allowed to do very much. And then the last year, I didn't speak about that. All the timetable for this and shadow years and all this, it's all being worked out that your old councils will still exist, but will be able to do increasingly less and less. And your new council will be set up and they'll get to grips with setting themselves up. So at one stage, should say, for example, myself, should I decide to stand, because, I want to offer my residents a bit of continuity or whatever, I would then, if I got in, I'd be on 3 councils. And then that would be quite a nightmare with, presumably they'd issue me a new laptop. I'd have 3 calendars and it might be okay because the district and the county would do less and less, and the new one would grow and expand. So it might be doable. Yeah.
There is an overlap, isn't there, Sarah, between when we get the mayor at one point, but we've still got the same system and a mayor, and then there's a year or so when it will being Rejig, yes.
Yeah, so there is a
my
overlap
there. That's the east-west. That makes total sense to me. Worthing.
option B.
Option B, yes.
I mean, just looking at it on the
thing.
map looks easy. And Ian, so thank you so much for your contribution about the partnership things, because that has not been mentioned to me at all. So I'm very grateful for your contribution in this meeting.
We see what Mike would like to.
Yeah, so I'll just say,
Can I
agree
stop
with the
sharing now? Shall I stop sharing?
Yes, thank you, Mel.
Okay.
So I'll just agree with the partnership thing. I've heard that as well, because we already have partnerships between some of the districts that seem to work quite well. Don't ask me for the example. So the final thing I was just going to mention, which you might have touched on, Sarah, was local area committees, which Jim McMahon seems very keen on, which if they end up like the old CLCs, county local committees, it's just going to be a complete waste of time, really.
Well, the county local committee, when I knew it first, because that's how I got involved in 2010, I went to one and I asked a question.
Yeah, me too.
Is that how you got involved?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So it
through cycling and wanting to
and the
get things
councillors had no clue. I mean, I was the only one who voted against them being abolished. They didn't have any powers and they didn't have any money towards the end, so they thus became a talking shop. But even that was of value. There was no other place you could go to discuss things in public, and it's part of our democracy to discuss things in public. So if we ever get together, maybe as a group, and want to put forward a view about this, I'd be massively in favour of these to be enshrined and given enough powers and enough funding to make them last, so they can't just be abolished 2, 5, 7 years down the line.
Right, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'd like Kate to have a chance, because I'm sure there was something you wanted to ask, and I can remember in the very early days there were petitions going around saying that we should make sure that the new unitaries have an obligation to consider climate and environment. And that seems to have got lost in the discussion. I don't know if that was the kind of thing you were aiming for, Kate.
Am I on off mute?
You're off mute.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, from a Rivers Trust perspective, obviously we want rivers and wildlife and nature to be at the heart of everything as well. It always seems to be, you know, the sort of poor relative, you know, at the table, really, when it comes to that. You know, it's always the last thing to be considered, and it's, you know, it's never the environment is never put at the top of the priority list at all, ever, and it always seems to be the first thing that kind of gets shuffled off. So as I say, from our perspective, I can't, as I say, we are the Western Sussex Rivers Trust, and I'm speaking from my point of view as well as not just for the whole organisation, but yes, we want to see rivers taken more into account, that's for sure. You know, we've got so many issues. The rivers are our lifeblood of our landscape as well, and we have so many issues with pollution, with development. The planning system needs massive reform, as we all know. Yeah, it suffers from a huge amount of things. So as I say, if there's any way I can kind of help in my sort of, you know, small capacity as a chalk stream resilience officer, then obviously I would love to be able to try and put the rivers back on the agenda. I know there's been so many things been said about giving rights for rivers and things like that as well. So again, it's a amazing concept, but yeah, what can we actually drive forward in terms of positive change, and change that's going to stick as well? So again, I'm kind of sort of looking to everybody else as well to sort of have help with that, and as I say, trying to contribute in my small way as well. I know that's a sort of a tiny, sort of quite a tiny proportion of what's been said here, but yeah, that's my standing anyway.
Thank you. And Mike, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, just to say, I think the thrust there was to do with the actual devolution side of it, so the mayoral bit, to make sure they had statutory requirements for climate and nature, which were missing from the original proposals. Now, as far as I know, and I'm not very good at what's going on in Westminster, that hasn't really progressed very far, the devolution side of this reorganisation. But maybe Sarah knows a bit more about that.
I'm not really sure, to be honest, but one big thing which is missing, because that links in with the rivers, is agriculture. I mean, I've been in meetings with the environmental protection team at Chichester District Council, and obviously, say for example, nitrates, they're massively concerned about building new houses, which will then, we can't connect to Appledram, etc. But they're concentrating on this massively and not facing up to the biggest issue, which is obviously farmers, what they put on the land, which then therefore goes into the harbours as well. But they say, well, we don't control the farmers, that's still under DEFRA. So this mayor, whoever they could be, will have huge remits, NHS, transport, you know, we've gone through this list, strategic planning, so possibly your local plans, housing numbers will be determined that way. And you're absolutely right, I did miss out, I'm sorry about that, the Council of Mayors, the Council of the Regions, or whatever it is, and the idea of fewer councillors and saving money. And you know, I think I was told originally that Labour and Conservatives are in cahoots about this, because neither of them can get enough candidates. That's one of the reasons of doing this. But yes, putting with West Sussex, you've got four aims with the overarching theme of climate change and the environment. But the way it's been put together, I know that it says it's overarching, but I agree with you, Kate, it's the first one out. And yes, there are these local nature recovery, you know, these strategic plans, but they seem to spend ages writing these plans, and then they're very difficult to understand. I've been to briefings on them, and I'm very sorry, I'm not clever enough to really get much out of it. Apologies, I don't understand what they're trying to do. Anyway, I shouldn't really admit that online, should I?
I know, Lynn, you tried to put your hand up earlier, so I'm going to go to Lynn first.
Just to take a step back and to go to what you were saying, Anne, at the beginning of the meeting about how there's this time frame that we have to respond to quite quickly. I'm just thinking in terms of how to find an amazing person to do this job. If Sarah is thinking to put herself forward, I think that's a great idea. But
no, thank you, but thank you.
Also, I think it's also worth looking at who maybe there can be a little ongoing group, or I'm not familiar with the way, you know, we do things in the Green Party. But if we were to research, I've just been looking at, as many people have, this guy, Zoran Mamdani in New York, and how he has turned everything around. And it occurs to me, and I know that we're not New York, and you know, there must be a few parallels, but we're not New York. But if we were to look for younger people, or indeed people who are prize winners, who are heading charities, who have been, you know, maybe we can get the environmental charities. It feels to me like we've got to hit the ground running on researching who this person should be. And the more we can put in now, the more chance we've got of having a bit of success. But I think can't reinvent the wheel the whole time. We've got to look at why the people that are in have succeeded. They obviously are dynamic. They get out, they get into the community, they achieve things. But is there another way that we can look at how we pull people into this particular role? And of course, if they have to have been a Green Party member for a year, maybe that will exclude people.
Well, there is a way around that. They just have to have enough support. You have to find 20 people to support someone. They have to join then, but you know, that is not an insurmountable obstacle. And that was my thinking with Tony Whitbread, you know, because he ticks a lot of boxes, but he said no. Probably quite sensible.
That doesn't help.
No. But yes, if you can find somebody inspirational, of course they have to be Sussex based.
Yeah.
So,
They might also be wealthy.
wealthy would be even better, wouldn't it? Sorry, Mike, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, just briefly. For obvious reasons, I've been interested in what Natural England are doing in terms of water neutrality, but equally in terms of nutrient neutrality. And so I'm quite happy to back up what Sarah said. Natural England aren't worried about sewer discharges into the Arun because there's so much coming off agriculture, basically. So that was it. That was the point.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Kate?
Yes, thank you. So it was literally just to sort of come on, follow on from a couple of points earlier on, which was about just about the chalk stream sort of strategy. So, I mean, obviously I work on chalk streams. They're, you know, really rare habitats. We've got most 80% of them of chalk streams that are in the world are in southern England. So this chalk stream strategy is pretty much been written by experts, but has been shelved by DEFRA and literally put on the back burner. So that's something obviously that we want to see pulled forward. So again, you know, sort of trying to drive that forward would be fantastic. But also just to sort of follow on from what Mike just mentioned as well about sewage discharges and things like that as well. There is no, so that the permits themselves and what water companies are allowed to discharge are written by the EA, by the Environment Agency. And there's nowhere near enough pressure on the Environment Agency to make, you know, the water companies actually stand up and actually take charge of their permits and actually, you know, discharge what they're allowed through the permit. So, and I know this because currently I'm experiencing massive problems down on the Aldingbourne with the Tangmere wastewater treatment works. Their permit says they can discharge a certain amount and they're over discharging, and this is continuously happening. So, you know, they're not being held to account. We need someone who is able to do that, and appreciate that brings us back to the, you know, the whole point of who can this person be to be able to kind of drive that forward. So but from our point of view, yeah, that's really important. These things are in place, these permits are in place, but they're not being upheld and they're not being held to account. You know, we have to go even higher up than that. It's Ofwat that determines what the water companies can do, and the water companies also cannot say no when a new development is being planned. They cannot say no to hooking that development up to their network. So that development has to get hooked up to the network, and then it's up to the water companies to go, well, what do we do now? Are we at capacity for this particular wastewater treatment plant, for example? They have no say at all. So there's various bits of the chain, obviously, that are pretty broken. So yeah, finding someone to be able to kind of push that forward is obviously important from the Rivers Trust point of view as well. So I just wanted to sort of make those points.
But also, Kate, I mean, you're obviously working in that field. So if you can find someone that you think would make a good candidate, please let us know.
I'm racking my brains.
Yeah, I mean, it's somebody who knows the subject, is politically aware, and can present really well. You know, that's what we need.
And has a lot of time. The person must have a huge amount of time to devote to this.
Yes, but they'll get money as well. They'll have a salary. So.
No, to get elected.
To get elected, yes.
Yeah, to get elected, you can't be doing this, you know, on top of a full-time job or what. I imagine you'd probably want to, if you were going to do it seriously, and that's £10,000. I mean, you'd lose the 5,000 deposit, wouldn't you, if you didn't get enough people?
Yes.
So that's a lot of money. You want someone who's going to really run with it and love it and enjoy it.
Did Tony Whitbread say why he didn't want to do it?
I was actually sort of in negotiation with his partner Vivian, and she said he had thought about it and they discussed it quite a lot, but he decided that really he prefers what he's doing, which is basically talking and spreading the word that way. And of course he does do that really well.
And I think he's too old. Sorry.
Do you?
I think it needs somebody at sort of 50 or less really to do this properly.
Well, that is true, but no, well, he is very, you know, I mean, I have a lot of admiration for him, and I thought he does have the qualities, and I don't know anyone younger who has them.
I think we should all research. as you said.
Okay, well, we have gone over time. So unless anybody else has any burning issues, I'm going to stop the meeting there. Thank you very much for coming. It's such a big subject. I'm going to have to actually watch the video myself to take all the points on all over again. But thank you very much for attending. It's been really helpful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Anne. Sarah, are you still? Could you send me your email, please? Is that okay? And then I can send you the chalk stream information. Sorry, I know that you've been corresponding with Louise, but if you could send me your email, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, if anybody else would like to put their email into the chat for Kate, please do.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
So that if you do the West Sussex one, because that's the laptop's easier to use, but it might be that because there's so many Lib Dems on CDC, they're very interested in this. I mean, it would be good to raise it, I suppose, at West Sussex, if it is West Sussex wide. You know, the rivers aren't just in Cheshire district, are they?
No, absolutely. This is I think this is a national thing, Sarah, to be honest, because of as I say, because of chalk streams. So there is the chap who's mostly contributes. There's a lot of other people, but he's pretty much called, well, I call him the father of chalk stream information, because he's written a lot of this and contributed a lot. It's Charles Rangeley Wilson, if you've ever come across his name. He's worked on chalk streams for an awful lot of time.
You have to work out what your asks are. What are you asking?
Yeah.
And what can a district or a county do beyond writing a letter to the Secretary of State, which I don't think that's that fulfilling. But I mean, if that's what you want, it's working out what you want to achieve and what can a district council contribute to help you get there.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. In a one-liner, more protection and more designation and recognition for chalk streams. That's it. In a one-liner.
Who's responsible for designation and protection at the moment?
So it would be. I think you're correct. I think it's DEFRA.
Or Natural England.
DEFRA or Natural England. Yeah. I'd have to double check for you. I can send you all the details that I have for for chalk streams. And then just, as I say, good to have that background info as well.
Yeah, I'd add to that delivery, because quite often procedures are there, but they're just being ignored.
Oh yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to go now. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Lovely to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.